Hey everyone, today we're looking at the add-ons from DBD's history that will shock you. We'll be looking at some of the most ridiculously powerful add-ons that have existed over the years. Iridescent Head, released in 1.6.0, or the Huntress's release patch, is quite possibly the game's most overpowered add-on in its entire history. This add-on has the same effect it has now, of providing you with the ability to instantly down a survivor with a hatchet. The main difference was the lack of a drawback back then. Currently there's a restriction placed onto this hugely powerful effect. You can only have one hatchet and that's the cap. This was only imposed in patch 4.7.0 though. Before this, it reduced your number of hatchets by 4, with the goal of restricting you to just 1. However, Infantry Belt could be run alongside this. This meant even with Iridescent Head reducing your hatchets down to 1 from the base 5, you'd still get 3 with infantry belts plus 2. It was even stronger though back in 1.6.0, with Iridescent Head only reducing your hatchets by 2, meaning with infantry belt you'd have 5 insta-down hatchets available. Bearing in mind that even 1 nowadays is considered pretty good still, she was truly unstoppable back then. On the same note, Redhead's pinky finger is worth mentioning too, and I would say, at least relative to Clown, was one of the strongest add-ons in DBD history as well. This add-on originally in its 2.0.0 version had basically the same effect as Iridescent Head. It applied exposed when you hit survivors directly with a bottle. This add-on alternately to Iridescent Head though didn't have any restrictions, meaning you had 5 potential insta-downs available at base. It actually took a long time for this to change too, with it only being altered in 5.5.0, but only to add the downside of reducing your bottle number by 2. It then climbed to a -3 reduction in 6.7.0, and finally a similar nerf to Iridescent Head where it was capped to just 1 bottle in 7.6.0. This isn't as fair a nerf compared to Iridescent Head, as Pinky Finger was never as strong as that, although very good. Swing Chains was an add-on introduced with Freddy's big rework in 3.1.0. Freddy's power had been completely altered in this patch, going from his original more immersed version into something more reminiscent of his design today. There was some clear issues with the numbers though, especially in the add-ons. Swing Chains at base applied a 3% reduction to repairing, healing, and sabotaging, just constantly. Just running this would already give you this slowdown, which is basically unheard of as an add-on effect. Every time a survivor fell into the dream world however, this would increase bit by bit, with its maximum being a 12% reduction. This was really strong, but it was made even stronger by pairing it with the green version of this add-on, Jump Rope, which applied an additional 9% reduction to a survivor when they were in the dream world, causing a constant base of a 21% reduction. This was the core of the famous Forever Freddy build, a build which kept you forever in the match by pairing up these two add-ons alongside slowdown perks and the relentless new version of the dream world. It was brutal, and genuinely really hard to break out of. Prayer Bead's Bracelet is an add-on that has been completely removed from the game, or decommissioned, so you know it's bad news. This add-on released alongside Spirit in patch 2.3.0. It's more famously known as the add-on for Silent or Jump Scare Spirit. This add-on completely removed Spirit's phasing sound when using her power, where nowadays you can hear the static sound when Spirit is phasing, and even directionally to get a general idea of which way she's coming. This add-on made it so there was no sound at all. At the time, Spirit already had questionable counterplay. She was faster, her phasing was poorly indicated, and she didn't even have a vaulting animation. In fact, the strategy with her at the time was to go up to a window or pallet and stand still, and wait for the survivor to vault into you, as they had no cues at all to know where you were or if you were even phasing. Especially with this add-on, the Stand Still Spirit Days. This add-on simply made this even worse, removing all cues entirely. It meant you could phase up to a gen and grab someone off, and they'd have literally no indication you were coming. It was silly. Anti-Haemorrhagic Syringe is a survivor add-on for the medkit, introduced with the launch of the game in 1.0.0. Nowadays this add-on allows you to heal a health state instantly, but it takes 16 seconds for this to activate. Back in the day though, insta-heals, as they're typically called, were in fact instant. you healed as soon as you pressed the button for the syringe. This was infuriating to play against as killer. Survivors would frequently do this directly in front of you, or even mid-chase, as it could be instantly applied. You could vault a window, heal a whole health state, and carry on with the chase. What was even stronger though was that this add-on could technically heal 2 health states. If someone was in the dying state and you healed them with a syringe, they'd go from dying to healthy in an instant. The kicker to all this originally too was the 1.0.0 version, unlike the version today, was actually a purple and not even an Iri add-on. Insane. I'd be remiss, of course, if I didn't mention Campbell's Last Breath, released in Nurse's launch patch in 1.1.0, an add-on that allowed Nurse to get 2 additional blinks, with the downside being a slightly decreased max blink range. This could also be paired up with Fragile Wheeze, which would give you another 2 blinks, with an additional few downsides also. So in total, you could get 7 blinks at one point in time. I'd debatably argue that all of this is a bit overkill, but I think purely for the extreme nature of being able to blink 7 times as Nurse is definitely worth mentioning. Brand New Part was an add-on introduced with the launch of the game in 1.0.0. This toolbox add-on repaired generators instantly. Yep, that was it. It just repaired them instantly. You'd go up to a generator, press the secondary action button, and it'd be done. It did have a downside though. To balance this out, it was fair, okay? It made toolboxes have 50% less charges when you ran this. Balance! Tombstone Piece is an add-on to this day that debatably is the only thing keeping Myers from the lowest tier in this tier list. And I actually wrote this before the Myers changes were announced, so he presumably doesn't have Tombstone Piece anymore, although it does seem to be an overall buff. Anyway, for the longest time, despite Myers being considered very weak, this add-on was the thing that literally upheld his power level to being half decent. This add-on has the effect of allowing you to Mori someone once per tier 3 usage. This is of course insanely strong, and completely changes the course of the game by removing someone completely. Unlike the iridescent version of this, Judith's Tombstone, it's far more beneficial. Judith's Tombstone takes 5 times longer to hit tier 3, whereas Tombstone Piece takes 4 times. Judith's Tombstone also provides a 9% reduction to your movement speed in tier 3, which is pretty noticeable, and makes it hard to actually use and Mori someone. Tombstone Piece is simply better despite its rarity. Its release version in 1.2.1 was even easier to use though, due to it only requiring 2.5 times the amount of regular stalk, made more bearable if you paired it up with the J. Myers Memorial. This add-on was a game changer for Myers. Mother-Daughter Ring is another add-on that is still really good, just nowhere near its peak strength back upon its release in 2.2.0, and up until its alteration in 7.1.0. This add-on currently allows you to move a whopping 25% faster when phasing as Spirit. Rarely do you see a number that high in adjustment. The downside is you no longer see Survivor scratch marks, a genuinely fair trade-off I think. For the best Spirit players though, this is totally worth it, with the increased speed allowing for even more freedom and easy downs. Back in 2.2.0, this already whopping 25% though was 40%, an almost silly speed number buff. You have to take into account too that back then all of Spirit's add-ons were better as well compared to how they are now. You could pair this up with longer phase duration, faster power recharge, and even the aforementioned silent phasing add-on. It was insane. Venomous Concoction was an add-on released with Huntress in patch 1.6.0. It had the very simple effect of applying Exhausted to survivors who got hit by your hatchet. It did so though for 90 seconds, which is over double the recovery time of using a regular exhaustion perk. Why was this so high? Well, there was a reason. Back in the day, exhaustion used to be recoverable when running, so you could use Sprint Burst say, and continue running, and the bar would keep going down. It was also only 20 seconds to recover from, so it was silly. To account for this, it meant add-ons like Venomous Concoction were created, with their huge application of 90 seconds of exhaustion. However, over time, and with changes made to exhaustion, this add-on did not change. This meant there was around a year or two where exhaustion acted how it does today, yet this add-on still applied 90 seconds of exhaustion, shutting down exhaustion perks with ease, all with a simple hatchet throw. It was insanely powerful. Honing Stone is an add-on for Trapper that nowadays is pretty strong. If a survivor gets trapped and frees themselves, they go down instead of escaping. You can partially counter it by having a teammate come and save you. Back in 1.0.0 though, this add-on simply puts you into the dying state as soon as you touch the trap. If you hit the trap, you'd be instantly downed. In 1.1.2, this was changed to have a 50% success rate, which I think is quite funny. The way to balance these insta-down traps was to just give it a random chance of working. 50% of the time they go down, 50% they simply get clamped. Either way, still pretty strong. But the 100% version, of course, was far stronger and pretty overpowered, I think. Carburettor Tuning Guide was a sort of busted add-on back in the day for Billy in 1.0.0. This add-on had a wide range of buffs despite just being a green or blue today. It gave a reduced cooldown time after using the chainsaw, reduced cooldown after hitting an object, and a reduction to audible noise made by the chainsaw. But the big one was an 18% reduction to its charge time, letting you rev that thing up insanely fast. This paired with the older Primer Bulb, which provided an additional reduction, and then also Old Tinkerer, a perk which amplified charge time effects by 15%, meant you rev this thing almost instantly, which led to the Instasaw Billy build, a highly powerful build that lets you near instantly rev your saw and down survivors, well, instantly. It was insanely powerful. Blight had a rocky path with add-ons over the years, having some incredibly powerful add-ons such as Old Compound 33, Eerie Blight Tag, or Adrenaline Vial, but the best through them all had to have been Alchemist's Ring, an add-on released in 4.2.0 alongside Blight. When this released in 4.2.0, it gave the effect of recharging all of your rush tokens after hitting a survivor during a rush. This meant you could rush, hit, and immediately be ready to rush again, essentially making you completely unavoidable. You'd think this would have a downside, but nope, it actually had an upside. It also regenerated your tokens 0.5 seconds faster. Like, what? Instantly recharged on attacks, and faster base recharge is madness. And when the nerf came in 4.3.2, the part that got nerfed was the base recharge time, with this effect being removed. The only justification I can see for this add-on is Blight's early days being quite janky, and so it wouldn't have been quite as powerful as if it existed on him now. But it did still exist on him when he was an S-tier killer, so yeah, it was insanely busted. Engineer's Fang I think is a wildly overlooked add-on, even today. It's really good, but its original version just didn't have a downside. This add-on was released with Pinhead, but was better before its nerf in 5.4.0. Currently it lets you damage someone with your chain shot, you know, the fast recharging, long range, although difficult to aim ability. The downside is that you get one less chain to spawn when you hit someone, so there's 2 chains instead of 3. Before 5.4.0 though, it didn't even do this. It simply gave you the ability to damage or deep wound with use of your ranged chain shot, and there was no downside aside this. This is kind of insane, and I think is overlooked heavily for how powerful it was. This gives Pinhead such insane potential, I think. Iridescent Videotape is an add-on for Sadako that still exists to this day, but has been through a number of stages due to Sadako's many changes. Nowadays it's not the best, and debatably a direct nerf to her actually, as it basically removes your ability to apply Condemned onto survivors. This is a huge part of her power. In 7.1.0 though, this add-on was far better, and actually improved Condemned considerably. In order to get rid of their Condemned bars, survivors would need to grab a tape, but Eerie Videotape made it so it had to be returned to a specific TV, usually on the other side of the map. This patch also made applying Condemned far easier, doing so to everyone not holding a tape when you teleported. So you could not hold a tape and get Condemned, or hold one and have to run across the whole map to bypass it. If you got hit on the way though, you also got condemned and the tape broke, meaning you had to go reset and find another tape. This add-on was the center of a brutal build where you could make condemned almost inescapable. Odd Bulb may seem surprising to see from today's perspective, as flashlights are fairly average in power, I'd say. Nothing overly powerful and debatably detrimental a lot of the time for most teams. Altruism kills, you know? Back in the day though, flashlights were strong, and especially with Iridescent Odd Bulb, released with patch 1.1.2, originally as a purple add-on. Its effects were not too dissimilar to today in writing, with it providing a stronger beam, with the downside of a faster drain rate. The effect this had though, despite it being listed as an increase to beam effects, basically made the flashlight into a searchlight. When you hear people talking about the old insta-blind flashlights, they really mean it. They were basically instant and could be performed mid-chase with ease. A quick turnaround, boom, instantly blinded. It was brutal. Whack on a battery add-on and you were golden for the match too. Throes Compilation originally had a much stronger effect and was particularly strong during the 7.4.0 PTB. During this PTB, Trickster was buffed into a fairly similar state to how he is now. He had an increased movement speed up to 4.6, his blades now threw straight without any recoil, and main event charged far quicker. This enabled him to be much more oppressive. One of the issues in this PTB though was that some of his old add-ons that focused on his old long charge time main event remained, one of them being Throes Compilation, an add-on that instantly replenished all your blades after using main event. This allowed you to hit 6 blades, use main event, and fully recharge all of your knives, meaning you never had to reload, and you were just this persistent threat, throwing and throwing and throwing. It was Trickster's most powerful state for sure. Another add-on that made this even worse though was Fizz Spin Soda, which during the PTB further reduced the knives landed to hit main event by 2, letting you get it near instantly. It was crazy. Videotape for Pig currently places all of the pig's traps onto the heads of survivors at the very start of the trial. This is how it's been since 5.3.0 in fact, yet nowadays it's fairly hit or miss. It's about a 50% success rate, it does pretty well, 50% everyone takes the traps off, it does barely anything. At one point in time though, it would at minimum guarantee you a kill from the very start of the match, and all you had to do was go and crouch in front of one of the jigsaw boxes. Doing this would make it so the survivors all search to find their key, with traps spawning on them all at the start of the trial. There would always be one person though who would never be able to get their key, as it was inside the box you were blocking whilst crouching in front of it, guaranteeing they would die. Brutal. This add-on led to an entire overhaul of how jigsaw boxes functioned, which you can see by reading Pig's 6.0.0 patch notes. This add-on wasn't even nerfed either, it was just considered that much of an oversight that her entire power was reworked instead. Lifeguard Whistle hits a sensitive spot for me, as this was debatably Demo's only cool and slightly unique add-on before its rework in 8.4.0. In its 5.7.0 version, it was far better, having the effect of sort of a tripwire for the portals. If a survivor ran over a portal, you'd see them with Killer Instinct, without having to charge your shred. This was especially powerful when paired up with the perk Hex Devour Hope. Alongside Hex Thrill of the Hunt, you could use your portals as tripwires for whenever a survivor was going to cleanse, with Thrill slowing them down considerably, and Undying allowing the totem to live on too. All of this build centered on Lifeguard Whistle though, and its incredibly unique tripwire effect. Nowadays it's got a very generic boring effect, but hey, I understand. I know it had to be done. Frank's Mixtape is a fairly famous add-on for Legion, which released shortly after Legion's launch in 2.7.0. Back then, Legion were able to repeatedly slash away at a survivor, which would slowly deplete their deep wound timer. Frank's Mixtape back then allowed you to further reduce it with your slashes, bringing it down by an additional 5 seconds. This was typically paired with Stab Wound Study, an add-on that brought deep wound timers down across the board. After doing this, you could force the survivors to eventually die to the timer cover by running backwards toward them. This allowed you to still chase them without a chase officially beginning, which meant they would eventually bleed out and far faster due to this add-on pairing. It was really silly and very unfair and very unfun, and yeah, everyone hated it. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching, and goodbye.